All right, let's get right into it. There's a huge event coming up for Ethereum, but what's weird is nobody seems to be talking about it. It's kind of flying under the radar. So we're going to break down what's happening. So get your calendars out. December 3rd. That's the day Ethereum is supposed to roll out its Fussaka update. Now, you know how it is with Ethereum. Dates can be a little flexible. But for now, that's the target everyone's got their eyes on. And here's the real mystery, right? This is a major upgrade. Normally, the crypto world would be buzzing like crazy. But this time, crickets. It's so quiet. So today, we're going to dig into this huge disconnect. What the update promises versus how the market is giving it the cold shoulder.
Okay, so to really get what's supposed to be so exciting here, let's start with the big picture. And who better to look to than one of the biggest asset managers in the world, Fidelity. They've laid out a pretty bullish case.
And what's super interesting is how Fidelity is framing this. They're not just seeing it as some minor technical fix. Nope. They're calling it a fundamental, strategic shift for all of Ethereum, like a real turning point.
See, for a long time, Ethereum's development felt, well, a bit all over the place. Lots of different people wanted different things. Fidelity says this update is about maturing its governance, basically moving away from that scattered approach to one that's way more focused on specific economic goals. And that new focus, it boils down to three core things. 1, make the network faster. 2, make it easier for people to actually use. And 3, and this is the big one, make sure more of the value created on the network actually stays with the core Ethereum protocol.
Okay, so that long-term vision sounds pretty good, right? But when you look at the actual on-chain data, the market is telling a completely different story, a much more cautious one. The numbers just aren't lining up with all that optimism.
And this number, wow, this really says it all. The total value locked, or TVL, on Ethereum has dropped by a staggering $27 billion. It went from nearly $100 billion down to $72 billion. That is a huge amount of money being pulled out, which tells you investors are getting nervous and expecting demand to fall.
And what about the traders? Well, if you look at leverage, the demand for bullish bets is pretty much gone. The funding rate, which is what traders pay to keep long positions open, is basically at 0. In a healthy market, that should be somewhere between 6 and 12%. This tells us nobody wants to pay extra to bet on a price increase.
Drilling down even further, if we look at what the top traders are doing on the big exchanges, it's not a pretty picture for the bulls. Over 61% of them are short, meaning they're betting the price will go down. The pros are clearly leaning bearish here.
And the warning signs just keep piling up. Network fees are down, which is bad news for the token-burning mechanism that's supposed to make ETH deflationary. Plus, you have to remember that 20% price crash back in October. That really shook people's confidence. And the whales, the biggest investors, they're just not putting their money where their mouth is on bullish bets.
So all of this leads to the one big unanswered question. And it's a doozy, because this update could fundamentally change the entire Ethereum ecosystem. This might be the real reason for all this fear in the market.
Okay, here's the core conflict. The whole point of the Fussaka update is to bring more value and revenue back to Ethereum's main network, Layer 1. That sounds great for Ethereum itself, but it could really squeeze the profits of all those Layer 2 solutions that have been built on top of it.
And that right there is a massive risk. Think about it. If you're a Layer 2 solution and suddenly it's not as profitable to be on Ethereum, what's stopping you from just packing up and moving to a competitor like Solana? It's a huge question mark, and if there's one thing the market absolutely hates, it's uncertainty.
So you put it all together, this really ambitious vision, the scary data, this massive unanswered question. And it brings us right back to the weird, quiet atmosphere we're seeing right now.
And that silence is what's so strange. I mean, remember past updates? They were hyped up as these huge events that would lift the entire crypto market. But this time, nothing. No buzz. No one's really talking about this as the next big rally starter. It's just quiet.
And that really leaves us with the ultimate question here, doesn't it? On one hand, you have this powerful, long-term strategic vision for Ethereum's future. On the other hand, you have the short-term reality, which is filled with fear and some really bearish data. So which one is going to win? I guess we'll all be watching on December 3rd to find out. If you found this video helpful, be sure to smash that like button and subscribe so you don't miss your next daily edge. More news in our Telegram channel in the first comment. See you next time.